Police and night guards of Reddit, what strange, odd, and spooky things have you seen? Please do like, share, and subscribe. I work nights alone, but with a sleeping coworker I can wake up in case of emergencies at a home for developmentally challenged adults, helping them out with whatever needs to be done, which usually isn't all that much since they sleep. I'm not armed in any way, would not want to be, and I'm around 5'7" and 140 pounds of pure love. One of the residents, a very autistic gentleman, sometimes has the habit of coming out and asking me in the middle of the night if he can sleep in, if he doesn't have to get up in the morning, like if it's a weekend or his stay-at-home day. He likes to be reassured that he doesn't have to get up, as he hates mornings. He sleeps with his socks on and has a very light, shuffling gait, which is almost completely inaudible. On a shift, I'm sitting in the main room, watching a television program about political analysis, with all of my attention on the program. All of a sudden, right next to my left ear, a soft voice whispers out, "Can I sleep in tomorrow morning?" And I just jump 10 feet out of my chair. This guy had snuck up on me, obviously, without meaning any harm, but I had to explain to him that doing that was a very bad idea, and that he should let his presence be known, because I couldn't guarantee that I might not react differently, and perhaps strike out at him out of instinct, if he ever did something like that again. Fortunately, he got the point. He still sneaks around, but now stops some 15 feet from where I am to ask his usual question of if he can sleep in. Usually, I know when he leaves his room, as the hallway lights turn on via motion sensor, but on that night, I was facing away from that particular hallway. I actually worked for a security company on a casual basis for a while a few years back. Without a doubt, the creepiest thing happened one night when I was checking a number of premises in an industrial park. This park was on the outskirts of town and already had a pretty eerie vibe at night when it was totally deserted. The job was simply checking that all the doors are locked and nobody is snooping around. This still freaks me out a bit today to think about it, but during that last inspection, I'm walking around a building and I hear faint laughing. I stop still and listen to hear what it is. It continues and sounded like a child or even a baby laughing. At this point, I'm a little freaked out and decide to continue to loop around the building and leave. As I'm walking around the building, I swear I can hear the sound of children's footsteps following me and the sound of very young kids laughing. I turn around and search with my flashlight, but nobody is around. I just nope the fuck out of there. I worked for an IT at a university and as such helped build the IP security camera system. One of the office managers complained someone left a food container in a mailbox for their office during the night sometime last week, because telling me the next day would be too easy. Anyway, I fire up the camera software and fast forward through videos of empty hallways at night. Sometime around midnight, a man carrying a mop turns a corner with a woman in a huge wedding gown. They walk down the hall and go into the women's bathroom. The man comes out a minute later and waves his mop in the air like a wizard. The bride comes out and they start acting odd, I guess. Weird hand gestures, kind of dancing. The bride lifts her skirt up over her head and kneels, while the man with the mop just stands motionless behind her staring at her. Then they got up and left the way they came in. It wasn't even close to Halloween, and it was on a pretty quiet weekend. No one in the IT department knew who they were. It was just weird. We did get a picture of the mailbox food container guy too, but that couldn't make out his face. I used to work as a security guard. I drove a vehicle around a pretty large city and had about 60 sites a night to check on. Each had different instructions. The worst by far was this old abandoned hospital. It was an 8-story building. Only 2 of the floors were in use by a university for psychological treatment. Every night at 2 a.m., I had a 20-minute tour there, where I was supposed to search the entire building and check all of the doors. This place was creepy as fuck. The top floor was all padded quiet rooms with big steel doors, and one of the floors was an old surgery ward with a bunch of old equipment laying around. And then there was a tunnel in the basement with all of the gas and water pipes running on the walls. There were a bunch of murals painted on the walls of kids playing, which had been warped from the heat, and I could always swear I heard footsteps down there. Surprisingly, nothing besides the building being creepy ever freaked me out. One time, I did find a sink faucet running in a bathroom on an abandoned floor, but nothing came from it. I still get the chills thinking about the place though. I was volunteering during the summer back in high school at a nearby theater. They were going to be doing a musical, always wondered why all the singers smoked heavily, and I had some carpentry experience, so I was helping out their tech crew building scenery. There was a loading dock behind the little kink of a hallway which led directly onto stage left, and on the loading dock was a couple of Coke machines where people tended to congregate, usually on their way out for a smoke or coming back in from one. I passed them going between the tech building where we built the scenery and the theater where we installed it probably 20 to 30 times a day. I'm working late one evening and I'm running through with a couple cans of spackle to do the drywall on the stage, and the guys are waiting on me. I catch a dark-haired woman in a white lace gown standing there just staring at one of the Coke machines an instant before I barge into her. I apologize and give a quick smile as I jink around her and keep going. It takes all of 2 seconds start to finish, and I'm not really paying attention to her since I've got other things on my mind. As I'm working, I mention that it seemed a bit early for dress rehearsals. My boss, Richard, gives me an odd look and says dress rehearsals aren't for another 2 weeks. I mention the woman in the dress, and Richard goes blank on me. He takes me out to the theater's administration wing and points to a wall of portraits where a picture of the woman is. The children's theater next door had been named after her. She was a lifelong actress who had married the man who built the theater I was standing in. She died in 1985. As a volunteer EMT, I went on a health check. Some woman called into the police about her elderly grandma. We all know what that means. When we got to the house, the weird smell whacked us in the face as soon as we opened the door. It wasn't the typical rotting meat smell, it was more like overdone beef stew. We followed it to the bathroom. Apparently, the old lady's hot water heater had failed years ago, and she used an electric heater under her clawfoot tub for hot baths. Her heart had failed, and she died in the tub, soaking in near boiling water for several days. My buddy and crew leader Rich grabbed her arm to pull her out. The skin and meat just sloughed off the bone like a cooked chicken. One of the noobs passed out, and Rich and I just hurled. Probably the most disturbing thing I've ever seen. I was doing guard duty in the Army one night. We had some training exercise in an abandoned camp facility, and my buddy and I had been assigned to watch over some vehicles that we had parked in a large empty warehouse. We were the only ones in that camp facility as there was nothing else valuable that had to be watched overnight. My buddy and I had tied hammocks between the vehicles to get a bit more comfortable for the overnight watch, when we suddenly saw a pack of wild dogs standing outside the doors to the warehouse. Now, these doors were wide open, and nothing was stopping the dogs from coming in at all, but they stood there, 15 to 20 dogs, lined up at the entrance to the abandoned warehouse, watching us. Suddenly, as if someone had flipped a switch, they all started barking and howling at our direction. I say our direction because when I discussed it later with him, we both agreed that it felt like the dogs were barking at something else in the entirely abandoned warehouse. My buddy and I were completely terrified. First, that we might have gotten swarmed by the dogs, and second, at whatever the fuck those dogs were barking at. We started to radio for help, but suddenly, the pack of dogs stopped barking and left. It was as if they had never been there. That was a long night of guard duty, I can tell you. I was in basic training, and every night we had guards that would just walk around in the barracks and count the people in the beds, check the bathrooms, etc., just to make sure no one ran away in the middle of the night. So I was woken up from my shift and got my red flashlight and began to walk around. About half an hour in, I'm walking through a row of bunks and I step in a puddle. I turn my flashlight down on it and it looks weird. I follow the puddle up and it goes to the top bunk. I turn my light on the bed and one of the privates is laying there just cutting himself up with a razor, like just shaving the skin off his arms and chest. I tell him to stop and he does it more. I take the razor from him and alert the overnight drill sergeant. We evacuate everyone from his barracks and turn the lights on. There's blood all over the ceiling and floor and the walls everywhere, and we'll never forget this. As told to me by my friend, before moving to the city, he used to stay in his ancestral house in a village. The people there had a tradition where on a particular day of the year, everyone in the village will make dinner, transfer a part into small earthen pots, and leave it on a small platform on the village outskirts for the souls. The eldest son in the family is the one who delivers the food. They are properly warned to not look to the sides or turn back, but walk in a straight line to the platform and back. They are also not to pay heed to voices taunting them too. So, it happens that my friend and a cousin of his are on their way delivering food to the platform, and he swears that he heard voices calling out to them. Since they were instructed not to look back, they didn't, but apparently one of the guys in their group did, and all the rest of them heard was a swoosh and a scream. They shat in their pants in terror but did not look back, somehow managed to deliver the food and run back to their homes. My friends swore that everyone in the village could hear the boys' screams the whole night, but everyone was afraid to come out to investigate. It was as if somebody's soul was being ripped into pieces. The next morning, everyone woke up to find the decapitated body of the young boy in the village square, and his head was found on a small platform in the outskirts. The police came and investigated, but did not find any forensic evidence of involvement of humans or animals in his death. There were telltale scars on the body, but nothing that looked to have been made by a human or an animal. The case still remains as one of the unsolved mysteries in the books of the police. I'm not sure whether to believe it or not, but my friend is never known to tell a lie or exaggerate. Was an overnight security guard for about 3 years. Before the 2 pots of coffee a night and 3 hours of sleep per day caused heart palpitations, and the doctor said it was killing me. One night, during the onset of winter, it was sprinkling a little bit, then stopped. The temp started dropping precipitously, and I heard the trees creaking on the other side of the trailer lot, food distribution warehouse. I looked out across the lot, and remember the day after tomorrow, when the Frost is seen as the villain, chasing people to the library? Yeah. I watched the Frost racing towards my little uninsulated shack across the lot. Crouching over my little space heater, I literally was scared. Also, one night during a crescent moon, the heavy cloud cover caused the top of the moon to look like the lighter flame in the sky. It took me literally a couple of minutes to figure out what it was. Freaked me out. Also, one night saw a huge green ball of fire. Still can't figure out what it was. I'm sure a meteor, but it freaked my shit out. Streak across the sky, like I could see the fire. I do night patrol for a 55 and up community, and I have one woman who's annoying. She will call the front gate to ask me if I can check to see if she left her glasses in her golf cart, take out her trash, open her water bottle, and other stupid shit like that. But there was one time I couldn't believe what happened. I was just finished locking up the pavilion, and I get a call from the front gate that someone was stuck in an elevator. I head over to the building we got a call from, and I see this lady in her golf cart. I asked her if she called the front gate, and she said she did, but never said she was stuck in an elevator, but at the building. She used the elevator phone to call, so we thought someone was stuck. Now here comes the fire department, and they are pissed off. This guy ripped into the woman about a false call and threatened to tow her golf cart. He states he can smell the battery is leaking acid, and she said she will get back to her stall. The fire department leaves, and now this woman is expecting me to push her golf cart 4 buildings away. She's complaining, saying the other guards would do it, and I say that we are not allowed to lift anything over 5 pounds. She wants a ride back, but I don't want to give her one. I tell her to call her building rep, and she complains it is too late at 11:30. After about 20 minutes of listening to her complain, I decide to push her golf cart into the grass and give her a ride back. She then states the reason she was out so late was because she wanted to go to the bank. In my mind, I'm thinking, are you fucking kidding me? We get to her place, and she starts complaining about my security company and how a unit got robbed in her building. Now I know this woman is crazy because we would have been told about it if that really did happen. The other day, I was sitting at my desk in our basement at around 4 a.m. and I heard some kind of rustling. It sounded as if someone took all of my jimmies and fucking rustled the shit out of them. Needless to say, I was not having it. I asked, hello? Assuming one of my brothers just needed to borrow my car or something. No answer. I got up and walked to the stairway, turned the light on, and looked up it. Nothing. I turned on the garage light and opened the door while holding a 5-pound weight in my hand. I needed something to hit this with. Opened the door, saw nothing, and proceeded to piss myself. I walked back into the basement and heard the rustling of my jimmies near my desk. I slowly creeped around the corner and heard it again. I saw this hooded figure walking down the sidewalk. It was dark and I couldn't see too well, but it looked like a hooded figure without a body inside of it, kind of like a ghost with a sheet, and you lift the sheet and there's nothing under it. Anyways, it was holding something. I feared that it was a weapon and it had come from hell to kill me. I drew my gun and fired. It fell to the ground with a scream. Skittles spilled over the sidewalk, then blood flowed under them, turning them red. It was a young man returning from the store with candy. What? Not a guard or anything, but I used to work an overnight shift as overseas tech support. I was at the corporate office of a large company near Chicago, and my shift was 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. I was allowed an hour break in there, and I usually took it around 1 to 2 a.m., where I would turn off all the lights on the floor, lay down in my cube, and take a nap. The floor plan was a big open area, around 25 by 200 feet, complete estimation, with cubes in the middle and offices lining the outside, with my cube positioned pretty much in the middle. As I'm taking my nap one night, suddenly every light on the floor turns on. I instantly wake up and stand up as fast as I can, heart pounding. My first thought was that I had somehow slept until 6:30 a.m. when the first workers start getting in. Then I notice what looks like a blonde head walking away from where I'm at, towards the front of the room in the aisle opposite my row of cubes. When she got to the end, all the lights turned off again, and I was left utterly speechless and slightly terrified. I knew everybody that worked in that building and didn't recognize whoever it was. To this day, it is the most bizarre, unexplained thing that's ever happened to me. I worked at a group home for juvenile delinquents. The building we were in was a 1900s mansion turned orphanage before focusing on delinquents in the 1970s. Pretty much all the longtime workers thought it was haunted. One worker had died from a heart attack and was revived. After that, he said he could see dark parts of the building. There were also incidents of workers seeing orbs, hearing kids laughing, and residents would report hearing noises in certain rooms similar to things heard by other residents they had never met before. Supposedly, one worker even saw a full-body apparition run through a door. Aside from hearing crashes, I never saw evidence of there was one weird thing that happened to me personally on a midnight shift. At around 6 a.m., I went downstairs to the kitchen to make coffee. As soon as I crossed the threshold into the kitchen, the door itself was open. The air felt heavy, and I could hear the voices and a dog barking. I checked the radio, and it was off. The building itself was on a hill and far from the sidewalk, but I looked outside in case somebody was wandering on our property. Nobody was out there. The voices weren't loud enough to be audible. I made the coffee, and as soon as I exited the kitchen door still open, the voices stopped, and everything felt normal. Another time, when I worked midnight, something happened. Didn't freak me out, but sure scared my relief. At the time, we had a resident who had run away. That morning, my relief comes upstairs and is asking me if I am okay and seems worried. I'm fine. Turns out what happened is, while the parking lot, he saw a window was broken. He came inside and saw a pair of scissors laying on the ground next to the door. He thought the kid had come back and tried to kill me. I had no idea he was even there. We figured he was probably trying to get a cell phone that had been confiscated and put in an office. Still kind of scary to think about what might have happened if I had gone downstairs and caught him. The kid was small, but he's one of the few people I've met that I would consider a sociopath, so I don't think he would have stabbed me if he thought it would help him. I work nights by myself, not as security, and this one time I'm just typing away on my computer, lost in the bright light emanating from my screen in an otherwise dim room. Then, suddenly a bit of movement above my head catches my eye. I look up, expecting it to be my imagination, but nope. A particularly large spider is repelling itself from the ceiling, aiming straight for my head. I shot backwards on my wheelie chair, straight into the wall behind me, and squealed the whole way. But no one was there to hear me scream. It took me a good while to build up the courage, but being the only one there and all, I kinda needed to get the thing away from my computer. I've been waiting for the right thread to tell this story. It was a Thursday night, and I was up studying for a test I have the next day. I live in the first floor of my dorm, and my desk is right next to a window, look into an alley. Just after I turned the lights off and was about to go to sleep around 3 in the morning, I hear two people walk into the alley, being loud and clearly drunk. Not a big deal. About 2 minutes later, I hear the two guys laughing extremely loud. I peek my under the window, curtain windows, cautious about what is so funny, and I see these two guys both holding each other's arms, leaning back with all their weight in opposite directions, and they are shitting together and laughing hysterically about it. Didn't say anything and went to bed and spent the whole night thinking of what the fuck I just saw. I worked as a janitor in my high school days at the local pool. The local pool was once an army barracks. One day I was cleaning the locker rooms and we opened up all the lockers and cut any locks left overnight. When I was mopping the floor, all of a sudden, all the locker doors slam. Needless to say, I was freaked the fuck out, and that job was never the same. So I go to a fairly big high school that was built around 13 to 14 years ago. It has 2 floors, and on the bottom floor, this is a staircase that leads upstairs and to the cafeteria. However, next to the stairs is a locked door that leads to nowhere. The school dug a pretty big space under the cafeteria for a swimming pool when the school was being made, and funding stopped, so they abandoned it. It was rumored that someone went missing there during construction and was never found. Every so often, I walk by and hear screams in there.